Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 135. And today I'm going to talk about hustle versus expansive work. Now, I've talked about this before in different ways, and I did an Instagram live about this as well. But this is going to go a little deeper. I really wanted to anchor an episode specifically about this here with more of my thoughts on it, more of the why this is important, and then to really anchor in a practice for you to start to make sure that when you catch yourself in hustle, you move back to expansive work. So first of all, I want to welcome you. My name is Lisa Espinosa. I'm a spiritual career coach. I coach wellness professionals and other leaders and guides, visionaries, and I help them to share their unique gifts with the world and do that without burnout. Do it by being led by their soul, right? Do it in a way that not only not only is it not burnout, but actually enlivens you, right? Fills you with aliveness, with vitality. And so every week I'm here to share some teachings to help you do that. I've been doing this work for now over 15 years. So my goal in each episode is to distill the wisdom, not from the 15 years, but also from the sessions I have every week with my clients who are like you, these amazing helpers who are so courageous and have a dream to create more impact in the world, but want to do it in a way that is sustainable. So I have my little outline here because I don't want to deviate too much from it. But what I want to talk about is I want to kind of trace the journey that often happens in the journey of being a helper, of being, whether you're a wellness professional or in another career. And so as someone who's very mission driven, even if you've never used the word mission, right? You feel like you have this mission in life, this prayer, this intention to bring about healing, to bring about unity consciousness, to bring about transformation to the world. I know I've always had that dream since I was a little girl. And so action, taking action is one of the things that you have to do when you have a goal, when you have a vision, when you have a desire. Action is very important. And I think most of my clients have had periods in their lives, for sure, where action was not a problem. Like they took action, often courageous action, often a lot of action. But this is what's so interesting. What very often happened is from taking all of that action and from the thought errors, which I'm going to talk about what they are, it became hustle instead of what I call expansive action. So hustle action, right? Action that comes from the energy of hustle is action that is coming from thought errors, from beliefs, and specifically from beliefs of what a good helper does, how a good helper behaves. I call that the Martyr Helper Identity. This set of beliefs and behaviors. And those beliefs, which can include, I have to sacrifice myself for others. If anybody needs anything, I must drop everything and help right away. It's a belief that anyone who needs my help, I need to help them. That's my role as a helper. It's a belief that if I really believe in the cause, if I really care for people, then I must suffer along with them. It's a belief that, well, maybe even if I'm not suffering, but if things are going well, I keep that to myself because I don't want people to feel bad if I'm having a good life or things are going well. It can also fuel this belief that I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I need to learn more. I need to prove myself. I need to put off being a leader or creating the new healing modality or writing my book or putting myself out there until I know more. All of those, and there's more. By the way, I'm going to be teaching a whole masterclass on this next week. I'll tell you that a little bit later. But So all of those thoughts, if you can imagine them in your body, they create a feeling of pressure. They create this feeling of lack, of not enoughness, right? They create hustle. Like it creates action that's coming from a thought that is limiting. I'm not enough. This isn't enough. I must do more. And so when action is driven from those limiting thoughts, inevitably it will lead to either resentment, it will lead to possibly burning out, and then eventually what it leads some helpers to do is to just withdraw. And all of those are very tragic, actually. Right? And so again, it's really important to know, like, you can create a lot through hustle. And actually what's so interesting is that at first, hustle can feel really good. It can feel like you're really devoted, you're really committed, right? You're so committed to the cause that you're just going to keep going, using your willpower, pushing through any needs that you have, and just keep showing up, right? And you can know, because what I really want this episode to help you do is to help you identify either when you're in hustle. So, because sometimes it's not that obvious. We think it's very obvious. I know we see that kind of stereotypical image of somebody that's like all burnt out and so tired and just looks awful. And you're like, oh my gosh, they're definitely been hustling. But there's a lot of undercover hustle that happens. I know because I've done it so many times, where you might look at someone and they just look really productive and like, oh my gosh, they're doing so much and they're accomplishing so much and all of that. But you don't see the behind the scenes of all the ways that that person is abandoning herself, the ways that that person keeps putting off the really important self-care that she needs. And so one goal of this episode is for you to identify if whenever you're in hustle, and the idea is to identify it really soon, like right at the beginning when you're like, ooh, I can tell I'm going into hustle energy. The other goal for this episode is I want this episode to help you see if you're scared of hustle, if the fear of hustle, the fear of burning out, the fear of doing too much, the fear of becoming overwhelmed, if that's holding you back. So that's the really interesting thing. You can either need help because you're in hustle and you need to understand why it actually doesn't create the impact that you want it to create. And I coach my clients with that. Or maybe you already know, I'm never going to hustle again. Oh my gosh, I burned out. I got sick. I hated my life. I was resentful of my clients and students, like all of the things. And you're like, I'm never doing that again. But then what happens is that you feel like you have your foot on the brake all the time, right? There's this voice in your head saying like, don't overdo it, don't overdo it, don't overdo it, don't overdo it. And I know I experienced that. I've experienced all of these things, right? But for me, coming from, before the work, I've been doing this work as a spiritual coach now for over 15 years. Before that, I was a Chicago public schools teacher. I taught 7th grade. For those of you who are not in the States, that's like 13, sometimes 14-year-olds. I had older 7th graders. And it was an amazing career. It was so rewarding. I learned so much. It was absolutely where I needed to be. And it's also a career that can be where hustle is almost like expected. Like you are expected. There's so much put on teachers that you're expected to just sacrifice everything and have no downtime, right? It's like show up no matter what. So when I left that career and started my own business, of course, I had this energy and desire to build my business, but I also had this, like, especially I would say, actually looking back, the first 3 years of not being in the classroom and trying to just develop my business, right? I wasn't a businesswoman. I was like, I didn't realize that's what I was embarking on. So I put myself out there, right? I did everything I could. And probably around year 3, when I actually was having clients and students and all of that, I really feel like I started going back into that hustle mode, which was so familiar from my years as a teacher. And again, it felt like not only normal, it felt like the right thing to do. And this is how you can, a big sign that you can tell you're in hustle mode. It's like a couple of signs. One is if you continually find yourself saying, well, I'll rest when fill in the blank. I'll go relax when fill in the blank. I'll go have fun when fill in the blank, right? There's always something that needs to be accomplished first before your well-being. And if you do that every now and then, it's not a big deal, right? That is a normal part of life, right? There might be, if I'm preparing to teach a class in an hour and there's something I need to do, I might very wisely say, I'll have to do that after I teach my class. So that's normal. But hustle leads you to make those choices. And let's call it self-abandonment, which I'm going to have an episode on that, where you abandon yourself, where you overextend, where you self-sacrifice, and it's just like a little constant leak, a drip, over and over and over. And at first, a little bit isn't a big deal, but eventually it's a very big deal, right? So you want to notice if you keep catching yourself that, or even just thinking, I'll be happy, when I achieve this, then I'll feel really successful. Then I'll feel fulfilled, right? That is all coming from action that you're taking from those limiting thoughts, right? Action that's coming from scarcity. Action that's coming from needing to prove something to yourself, to others. And so the other thing, oh gosh, there was another thing I was going to say as I was saying that I didn't write in my notes that I thought like, okay, this will be important to share. It slipped through my mind, but if it comes back, I'll share that with you. So when you first understand like, oh, this is hustle, is when I'm doing this action and I'm afraid to stop taking this action. There's fear, like I've got to just keep doing it. I don't want to disappoint others. And then if you do end up burning out, right? If you do, which happened to me around my 4th year of being a solopreneur, that I got sick, I got pneumonia, and that took forever. It was like a 3-year journey. And then I got some autoimmune stuff. So it was really like my whole body basically saying stop. Right. And it wasn't just the 3 years of being an entrepreneur. It was the almost 10 years of being a teacher and all of the hustle, relying on willpower to take action. Right. It's like relying on it's this feeling always like you're almost like you're going against the current. Right. It's like I just have to keep going. And so after that experience of my body just kind of saying stop, enough, and the recovery period, I can look back and see that then I went through some time where I was like, okay, I'm never doing that again. I shall never hustle again in my life, without totally understanding what hustle was. I just understood that it had led to burning out. But then what happened is that my solution was to hold back. That was like, okay. And that's where that voice, like, don't overdo it, don't overdo it, don't overdo it. And I understand that it was a part of me that was like, don't overdo it. You don't want to go into hustle. Don't overdo it. You don't want to get overwhelmed. And I was unintentionally, even though I had this prayer and these goals of like reaching more people and creating more impact and touching more lives, I had that, right? Kind of like open the door for me, universe. But at the same time, I had my foot on the brake, like, but not too fast, not too much. And so there was the fear. And I feel like that's another place where my clients come at that moment where they're like, I know I have more to do. I know I have more to offer, but I already experienced burnout and that was terrible. So I don't know how to do it. Like, I don't know, how do I show up? How do I create more impact and not fall into burnout? And so just notice for you if any of those are familiar. If maybe you're like, oh yeah, I sometimes go into hustle, because the other thing that can happen, and I think for me this was long, is that you can kind of be in cycles of hustle, kind of like you're taking expansive, and I'm going to talk about expansive action because it's important for you to know, well, how am I supposed to take action? But there might be times when you're taking expansive action, and then it goes into hustle, 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 and then you get really, really tired and you withdraw. And then you come back in, right? And that's when you feel like this little bit of a roller coaster, this like kind of like what is it called? It's not a natural ebb and flow, but it's more like I'm either really, really busy, and at first it feels exciting and great, but then it feels terrible, or then I withdraw and I basically tell the universe, don't send me any more clients, don't send me any more work, don't send me any more opportunities. This is too much. And then I get to the point where I'm like, wait a minute, I want more opportunities. I do want to help more people. Wait, I actually do have more that I want to create. And it's just like almost like a whiplash of like that, because we're not clear on what hustle is. We're not clear that, oh, I go into hustle, then I have a fear of hustle, so I withdraw. And you have had moments of expansive action. So let's talk about expansive action. Expansive action, and I love that name that I use to call it that, is action that you take that expands you, that expands your capacity, that expands your impact, that expands you past your comfort zone. Because I think this is what I really want to clarify. I think sometimes when we hear, okay, I'm going to stop hustling, then we think that we're just going to take action that always feels like really easy and doesn't challenge us. And yeah, we can just kind of like almost like do it in our sleep or something. But that's not true. Remember, your soul is always guiding you to stretch past your comfort zone. Your comfort zone, and I mean mine, all of ours, our comfort zone is created by our ego structure. That's the part of us that is like, okay, don't do anything too dangerous. And I mean dangerous, I don't mean like physically dangerous, but like don't put yourself out there. Don't say too much because people are going to judge you. Don't, teach that new class because what if nobody shows up, and then you're going to be so embarrassed and you're going to feel terrible, right? That's what the ego structure does. It prevents us from taking risks because it wants to keep us safe. That's what it believes, that you just have to stay the same to stay safe. But that is not how our soul works. Your soul, again, is infinite, is eternal, is eternally connected to source, to God, to the universe. And your soul wants you to share the highest version of your medicine. That's what I call it, your unique gifts. So think about that. Your soul is like, knows the gifts you have to share, the impact you're here to create, the transformation you're here to midwife for others, the inspiration you're here to be for other people, the impact, all of that. And even though you're already doing that in many ways, I'm sure, your soul holds the highest vision of that. And your soul knows that in order for you to do that, in order for you to share your gifts at your highest level, you must step out of your comfort zone, right? Like that's going to be the path there. So that's expansive action. It'll be action. So for example, leave, and this is a extreme example. I'm not suggesting this is what you have to do. I'm sorry. I've been having like allergies today, so I'm gonna have to blow my nose. But expansive action. So the example I was going to give was when I was a teacher, right? I was a teacher. I was at that point almost 10 years. I'd won this prestigious award in teaching. I had published some articles in educational journals. I was having all these like amazing opportunities that were opening up for me. And in some ways, if you looked at it through physical eyes, I was at the height of my career. But I was dissatisfied, right? There was something inside of me that was like, the question I kept asking myself was like, why am I not happier? Why does this not feel great? It just feels, and then I got the message from my soul, right? I very clearly heard, I write this in my first book. I write this story, so I won't go into it too much, but just the gist of it is I was teaching reading, and I had a little bit of an out-of-body experience where I was watching myself teach my 7th graders. We were going through this novel. Pretty sure it was An Island Like You, a great novel. And I heard my voice clearly saying, your time here is done. And I was like, oh, I had not had that conscious thought because it didn't make any logical sense. All these things were happening in my career that were great. All these opportunities were opening up. I was nowhere near retirement age. So it was like, I'd never considered that. But there, my soul's voice was saying, your time here is done. And so leaving that career was expansive action. Right? That was expansive action. It took me outside my comfort zone. Now, I said that was an extreme example, but there's also very little, smaller examples that can feel just as scary in a way, right? So it might be, for example, if you're a therapist, you might get the guidance that, oh, you're being called to pivot, to shift the type of clients that you serve. And it might just mean ending or saying no to a potential client that has come your way. Maybe another therapist referred this client to you. And in the past, this would have been a completely ideal client for you, but now your soul is guiding you in a different direction. And the expansive action that your soul is guiding you to take is to very lovingly tell this potential client, in whatever words you use, I can't help you. I can refer you to someone else, or I'm sure you'll find somebody else, but to say no. And that, from the outside looking in can seem like a very simple thing, and sometimes when we're really in that helper energy, it can feel like we're pulling our tooth out or something, right? Like, so when I say expansive action, I'm not talking about wimpy action. That's not what this is about. This is like action that will expand you. It might mean going to a class, right? Like, so for example, tomorrow I'm going to take an expansive action that might seem really small, but I've been trying to find the yoga studio that I used to go to. Just the schedule just isn't aligning anymore with me. And they opened a new yoga studio near my house, but it's Ashtanga yoga, which I've never really practiced. I mean, I know about it, of course, but I've never. And so tomorrow they're having a sound healing class. Anyway, whatever. So I'm going to go. I found their WhatsApp. The way promoting is done in Mexico is very different than the US. But anyway, I figured it out. I'm going to do it, but I'm a little nervous, I have to say. And I'm not teaching the class, but it is this kind of like, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary in Mexico yesterday. And then, the second year, Greg got diagnosed with cancer. So that's been kind of the focus. So I still am very much in the early stages of developing friendships and connections here. I mean, I've met many amazing people, but as you know, developing relationships takes time, and I work from home. So it's not like I have a job that I go to and every day I meet people, right? So I'm going to go to this thing because my soul's really like, go. And like, I can feel like, it doesn't feel like, I could just do this in my sleep. It's going to be like, I have a little bit of nervousness for various reasons, but I'm like, I'm going to go. And if I hate it, okay, but I did it, right? So again, expansive action is going to stretch you past your comfort zone. And I gave that example because often what's so interesting, my clients are amazing, all of them. And they're so courageous. Interestingly enough, they might not call themselves courageous. Isn't that interesting? Like, we don't consider ourselves courageous, but we are actually so courageous because the standards are so high, right? Because you might be like, oh, but I still have to do this, and I haven't met this goal or that goal or that goal. And so you disregard all the courage that you have. And sometimes I coach my clients in these little things that might seem so minor. Like, here they are getting through like really challenging things, but then like their soul's guidance to go try a new class for fun, they might put it off for months, right? Until we talk about it and really like make space for that desire and for that understanding that, oh, this is the expansive action I'm meant to take. So expansive action really comes from the opposite of the martyr helper thoughts. So the martyr helper identity thoughts, right? I gave some before. I must help everyone. I need to prove myself. I must suffer to show my devotion, and so on. The truth, the sovereign truths, I'm going to share some here with you. Okay. So, and I know that if you're here watching this, you already, in some place inside, you already know this is true. And maybe you're like, yep, I totally believe that. But there's a difference between hearing them and agreeing and versus really having them guide your life and your decisions. That's when you know you truly have embodied a belief. When you make different decisions, because ultimately, for example, one of them here is, I'm not here to help everyone. I'm here to help only those that my soul that are meant for me, right? So you might hear that and be like, oh my gosh, yes, I totally believe that. Yes. But then if 5 minutes from now somebody comes to you in need, and even though you know, like, no, they're not meant for me, but you're like, oh, I don't want to disappoint them, that feels so bad, I'm a bad person if I don't say yes, then you haven't fully embodied that belief. Embodying the belief creates different behaviors, different decisions. That's when it's embodied. If it's just in your mind and you hear it and you agree and you think, oh, awesome, but your decisions don't change, the choices you make aren't different, then it's not embodied. And this isn't a judgment. It's just really important information for you to understand. Like, oh, okay. Because I know we throw these things around like, here's a belief, embody it. And you're like, okay, that feels great. I'm going to embody it. But it's not just like in the moment. It's like, oh, actually, embodiment is like, I'm going to let it drive different decisions. Okay. And that's what, coaches help with, right? It's like helping us to really have these beliefs create a different result. So my well-being is essential. That's a very powerful sovereign truth, right? A sovereign helper truth. My well-being is essential. Notice it doesn't say is important. It says it's essential. It's the primary thing. That's how you can create the most impact, is when you are filled up first, because that ensures that the help you give others is in integrity, is at the highest capacity, is not some weird codependent thing like, oh, I don't want to disappoint you, I don't want you to judge me. No, it's like in truth. Okay, so my well-being is essential. And I love this one. It's like, I release codependency and trust in others' guidance. And what that means is, I don't mean like you trust others to guide you, is that you trust that others have their own soul. They don't need to be saved. As helpers, we're not here to save anyone. We're here to remind them of their gifts, of their light. So even if you have to say no to someone and they're very disappointed, and you can have compassion, but then you hold the total belief that they're going to find the right person to help them. There's no way their healing is dependent on you. Like, we are all sovereign beings. And then this one, I shine and take up space so that I can be found, so that I can be found by my people. I'm visible. There's more, but those are enough for you to start to think about, like, when you take action. For example, maybe you just focus on my well-being is essential. And from that thought, the action you take will be very different than from the thought, I must sacrifice myself for the greater good. The thought, I must sacrifice myself, absolutely will lead to hustle, will lead to you doing action, sometimes action that's not even the right action for you, sometimes action that's just driven through willpower and is ignoring the needs you have, emotional needs, mental needs, physical needs. It will lead to resentment or burnout or body getting ill or all of those things. It will water down your medicine. That's the worst part. This is the thing why this is so important, because we think hustle is devotion. We think, oh my gosh, you're so committed. You haven't eaten. When I was a teacher, and I love teachers and I love that profession, but there was a little bit of a martyr mentality. There was a little bit of like kind of bonding over the suffering, bonding over how hard, how depleted we were, or how, late we stayed up, or how whatever, it was like this, like, And obviously there's something really nurturing about having people you can talk to, right? So I'm not talking about that. Of course, it's wonderful to have peers that you can be like, oh my gosh, last night was so hard, or that. But that's different. I wasn't talking about that because I used to do that with my colleagues, the other seventh grade teachers. We would just connect, and that was so helpful. But that's different than kind of bonding over the suffering and the almost like as this badge of honor, right? Like, and so again, it's important to do this because we think that that is creating more impact, and it's watering your impact. It's diluting your medicine. Your unique gifts, your unique medicine can only be expressed when you're aligned with your sovereign truth. Why? Because that's when you're aligned with your soul. So realize that this isn't selfish, because I know for the helper heart, the idea that in some way we're being selfish is crushing. It just feels like so wrong, because you're literally wired to help others. So if there's something that you're doing that like, oh, but this is selfish. So I want to really be clear, this is not selfish. This is how you will create your greatest impact. This is how you're going to be able to access divine solutions, creative ideas, divine shortcuts for your people. And of course, this is an ongoing process for me, but this is something I've been working on for years. If I had stayed stuck in the martyr helper identity, I'm sure I'd still have students and clients and all of that, but I would be perpetuating that paradigm, that archetype of the martyr helper. There would absolutely be teachings that I have been teaching now, ways that I help my clients now that I would not be able to do. I would have just never accessed, because I would have been driven by hustle and then recovering from hustle and then going again and hustling. Like I know without a doubt that my impact would be less. And there's still so much more mastery that I have to embody, right? And so let's talk about the practice for you to do. A grounding practice to shift from hustle to expansive action. Okay? So step 1, there's 4 steps. First step is you're going to notice when you're in hustle energy, when you're in the martyr helper thoughts. And that's why I named those for you, because when you know them, you can catch this way sooner, like way before you're like, oh my gosh, I've been hustling for 3 months. But more like, ooh, today or this last hour, I was kind of like really neglecting myself. Why was I doing that? Oh, that was coming from the thought that I have to prove myself, that I'm running out of time. That's why I was in hustle, right? So first you're going to identify, notice when you're in it. And I did actually step 1 and 2 at the same time. And step 2, because it kind of happens together, is identify the thought that is driving the hustle. Like really, and what's really powerful about this is that you'll start to notice the dominant thought for you that drives hustle. I did a whole masterclass last month earlier this month about the thought, I'm behind. And for a lot of people, that's the thought that creates the most hustle. I'm behind, I'm behind, I'm behind. But for you, it might be different. It might be, I'm not ready. It might be, I need to prove myself. It might be, oh, I can't take care of myself till everything else is okay. Then I can relax. That's like a lie we tell ourselves, is a thought error, right? Like, okay, I'll focus on myself once. And it might not even be about helping others. It might be like, once my house is sparkling, or once I do all this thing. But again, if you do that over and over and over and over and over, and you find like you never get to yourself, that's hustle, right? So that was step 1 and step 2. Step 3, once you've identified that you were on that path and you've identified the thought, you're going to replace that martyr helper thought with the sovereign helper truth. So if your martyr thought was, I must put everyone else first before me, and you're like, okay, I have to shift that. The healing for me is to replace that with, my well-being is essential. I'm actually more helpful. I'm actually more of a resource when I prioritize my needs. That's the shift. And you tell yourself that thought and you repeat it to yourself. You breathe it in. And, bonus, if you have time or later, you can journal, you can really, maybe think about it a little bit more. But really the point is, I would say, like, even if you just write it in your phone, to keep reminding yourself, okay, wait a minute, whenever I feel that old identity pulling me away, I've got to come back to this truth. And from that place, you're going to notice you do things differently. Maybe you take a longer breakfast. Maybe you take, and it'll be little. That's the amazing thing about this, is that we hear this when we're in hustle energy or lack energy. We hear this and we're like, oh my gosh, this is going to slow me down so much. This is going to be so hard. I'm going to fall behind, but okay, I'll do it. But what's really interesting is that doesn't happen actually. And so many times it's just little things. It literally might be like, oh, I'm going to go make myself some tea in the morning and sip it while I look out the window at my beautiful view. And that's going to take maybe 15 minutes. But when I'm in hustle, there's no way I would do that. I would just think, I don't have time. I got to just keep going. I'll do that later. Or I wouldn't even think of that. So it's so interesting. It's just these little micro things. And so those are the steps. You're going to notice when you're in hustle energy, and do all of this with compassion, because we all go into hustle energy, because that's driven from our ego, and we all have an ego. Okay, so step 1, again, notice when you're in hustle energy. Step 2, identify the thought that is driving it. Step 3, replace that thought with a sovereign helper truth. Step 4 is anchor that thought in. However you do that. Maybe it's enough for you to repeat it out loud, but most people need more than that. You might need to write it down. You might need to have it on your desk. You might need to, they have so many cool apps now where you can record your voice saying an affirmation and you hear it. Find creative ways. And how do you evaluate and know that it's making a difference? Is you start making different choices. Your behavior actually starts to shift. And when that happens, your results start to be different. Because I have been coaching for 15 years, and I can tell you that as I've coached my clients through this and other things, what starts to happen is that the universe starts to align things for them, and new opportunities come, right? Like new opportunities, new ideas, right? It's like we're not chasing it. It suddenly starts to open up. Or maybe it's already what they're currently doing, but they suddenly have more energy for it, more connection, more alignment. The things that used to burn them out in the past don't burn them out anymore, because they're doing it from that sovereign helper truth, instead of from like, I have to prove myself, I'm falling behind. All right. So thank you so much for being here with me. Oh, I said next week is the masterclass from, what is it, like release the Martyr Helper Identity and embody your sovereign self, something like that. But it's a free masterclass, and I'm really just going to really dive into, like, really break it down. What is the Martyr Helper Identity? What are the thoughts? What are the behaviors? I've like really been studying this, like in myself and my work with my clients in these 15 years that I've been doing this work. And then I'm going to share with you, what is the sovereign self, the helper? What are her thoughts? What are her actions? And so you're going to know both of those. That's going to be so powerful. And then the in-between, because that's really important. Like what happens in between. That is a free masterclass. It's July 31st, last day of July, 12 p.m. Central. You will have the replay for 5 days. I would love to see you. And if you can attend live, that will be amazing. If not, again, you'll have the replay for 5 days. I'll put the link in the comments section here underneath the description. All right. Thank you so much. And you know what? Let me pull a card from the Spirit Animal Oracle. And let's just say that the question is, what beautiful animal guide is helping you to take expansive action this week? Okay. Oh my gosh, I love this. Look at what you got. Rabbit spirit. Now is a lucky time. Look at this little bunny rabbit. All right, that is your guide. This little rabbit is the one guiding you to take expansive action. And how amazing that the message is, this is a lucky time. Right? This is a lucky time. But really, I really feel luck is just like, it looks like luck, but it's really all the preparation we've done, right? That aligns, like a miracle shows up and we've been preparing for it and our heart is open and this amazing synchronicity happens, or this amazing opportunity happens that in the past we would have missed because we're just not in that place. So look at this, number 49. And you can look up more about rabbit medicine. Rabbits are very fertile, as you know. So I'm feeling like your ideas are very fertile. You're very fertile, not in the sense of having a baby, unless that's what you want to do right now, but it's like, but like your creative babies, right? Like your ideas, your seeds that you're planting, your impact. I hope to see you next week, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye everyone. Bye Roxana, Maisie, and anybody else who's watching. For some reason, I can't see the other names. All right, bye.